I found a set of dice online that were shaped like cheese.
Nice. Wallace would be proud.
You would be.
Yeah, he would.
I also found a loaded D20 that on every roll has a 30% chance of landing on 20
Okay.
and a 15% chance of landing on 19.
Oh, interesting.
So I should get one of those for D&D, right? That would be fun for everybody involved. That wouldn't ruin the game
Sounds
for
like
anyone.
it. Oh, yeah, definitely not.
Especially if I was the DM. Like,
there you go.
I don't have to fudge any more rolls. I could just be like, 20. Don't fudge rolls, people. That's not fun. Unless you're the DM and it makes a lot of sense to do so, but only sparingly. Be merciful. Come on. The only time I ever fudged rolls in D&D was as DM, and if like things were getting too bad for the players and it wasn't fun, I would lower the numbers a bit.
Gotcha.
Okay, hey everyone, and welcome back to GC Squared. It's a podcast that we host, and we talk about comic books and video games and whatever else there is to talk about. But we're here and we're talking about stuff. And I'm talking about stuff with my friend Garrett. Now let me tell you a little bit about Garrett. When Garrett isn't playing video games, he's probably doing something else. So, Garrett, go ahead and tell me what's been going on in the world of video games.
All right, so biggest thing I've been hyped for personally
is Spider-Man 2.
Actually, I was going to say Nickelodeon All-Stars 2.
Oh, okay.
Called Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. And they've announced like a bunch of characters recently, which is pretty hype. The game looks fun and a lot better than the first one, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in the last episode. Last episode, we just had a whole bunch of leaked stuff. I guess there was like a version of the character roster or the box art that was leaked.
Yeah, it's turning out that most of that is correct because all the characters they've announced so far have been from that box art leak.
That's great.
And it's been kind of interesting because they've been holding character trailers where they show off the different characters, but they've also been having what's called character spotlights where they explain their movesets and some of the changes to characters. But what they've been doing is they've been taking these characters and having like professional pro players or big people narrate what the character's like.
So which character did they give you to review?
None of them, because I never got involved with the scene.
No.
Yeah, just life is busy. It can be hard to keep up with games competitively, you know?
Yeah, I getcha.
Yeah, so like for example, they had Hungrybox cover Nigel Thornberry, and they had Coney cover Ren and Stimpy. I believe they had Void cover Aang, so just like a bunch of different pro players narrating these various characters, which is cool.
That is very cool.
Also, best part about the game is Grandma Gertie from Hey Arnold has the Falcon knee.
Oh, Arnold would never make it into this game.
Yeah, they put in Grandma Gertie and Gerald.
Well, the thing is that wasn't Arnold's whole deal that he's super non-violent?
Yeah, Arnold avoids violence whenever he can, with the exception of the episode when he learned like karate.
Yeah, so that I feel like that might be a consideration for this kind of thing. How much would it break character to put them in the game?
Yeah, I'm wondering if Arnold is kind of the Waluigi of this game. People keep asking for him, but they just don't put him in.
Well, it's kind of hard to put a pacifist into a fighting game.
I don't know. It can be done. Like, look at Villager from Smash Bros. Like, he doesn't do any fighting, but yet there he is in Smash Bros.
If you think Villager doesn't do any fighting, you're playing Animal Crossing wrong.
When do you fight in Animal Crossing?
Okay, so you get a net, okay? You can smack anyone you want as many times as you want with this net.
That doesn't count.
That totally counts because it gets everyone angry at you, and you can make your villagers move after hitting them too many times with the net.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
But there was a Yakuza Direct that was pretty cool,
Okay.
where they showed off more stuff about the two games that are coming out soon. There's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and I forget what the other one's called. So that's reassuring.
Oh boy.
Let me check real quick. There's Infinite Wealth. Oh yeah, I think like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, hasn't come out yet, but it's going to come out.
Neat.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting, especially since I really enjoyed Yakuza Like a Dragon. So I'm looking forward to Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yakuza always looked like a pretty cool game. I'm kind of interested in that. It's like I don't know what it's like. What is it? It's an open world mafia game that takes place in Chinatown.
Well, it takes place in Japan in very just parts. I think most of the games take place in Kamurocho. My thing is I don't have too much experience with Yakuza. I only played Like a Dragon because I'm really big on RPGs.
Sure.
And I found it at a store for $15, so I went, why not?
I do appreciate how most games kind of depreciate in store value after a while.
Unless you're Nintendo.
Unless you're Nintendo, then whatever.
Yeah, I've been using the Xbox Game Pass to play Liza P recently. That's been fun.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's really good. It's in essence a spiritual successor to Bloodborne, because people were tired of waiting for Bloodborne to come out, so they just made Liza P instead.
That's the way to do it.
And I've also been playing a ton of Mortal Kombat 1.
Nice. How do you like it?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the combo system in that game.
Cool.
Very tight controls, very fluid. There's some anti-consumer practices in it that I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's a fun game.
Like what? Just like, are there predatory microtransactions or?
So it's a full price $70 game with microtransactions for alternate skins and costumes.
Oh, that's slimy.
And they kind of nickel and dime people as well, because you can either unlock all the cameo fighters to fight by your side, or you can pay like $10 to unlock them all instantly. There was a pre-order bonus with Shang Tsung as a playable character, and if you didn't pre-order the game, then you can pay money to get him, and you can also pay money to unlock the character Havoc, which normally you have to beat story mode to unlock him. So they like added in all this stuff of, pay us money and we'll let you unlock stuff immediately.
To be fair, I feel like that's just kind of Neversoft's deal. I can't speak for the Mortal Kombat series, but Injustice 2 was lousy with that kind of thing.
Did you mean NetherRealms?
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. Neversoft's a completely different company.
Yeah, they made Tony Hawk.
Yeah. Oh, Tony Hawk's so good.
So good. I love the Tony Hawk games. Like I just like to turn on like Free Skate and just chill, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they made the Tony Hawk games, they made Spider-Man 2000, and oh man, they made Guitar Hero 3 onwards. Oh, I love Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero 3 was them?
Yeah, they did 3 and then all the other games after 3.
Oh.
Yep.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
They should have put Tony Hawk in it.
Well, create characters in there from Guitar Hero World Tour onwards. So there you go. You could just make Tony Hawk yourself.
I could put Tony Hawk in it. Sweet.
Did you ask for a better game? The answer is no.
Oh. But anyway, what I was getting at was that I can't speak for Mortal Kombat, but Injustice 2 was lousy with microtransactions where like you got all of this gear for whatever character you were playing, but you were only guaranteed to have like a 30% chance of getting gear for whatever character you were playing as. So like, you know, I would play hours as Superman and I get all of this like Green Arrow stuff I'm never going to use. And all of it looks different and they make you pay to buy a special currency to change the appearance of whatever gear you get so that it matches what you want to look like. And it's a whole thing.
Dang. Yeah, they have a gear system in Mortal Kombat 1, but it doesn't impact gameplay as all. It's purely cosmetic, so you just equip it to whoever you want and you can unlock a bunch of stuff for free. Something I do kind of like is they have this game mode called Invasion Mode that
Okay.
allows you to just play through like this board game based thing with some light RPG elements where you travel from point to point, level up your characters, and you also just fight in various battles and stuff. But what's really cool about it is as you're playing it, you unlock a in-game currency that you can use to purchase that season's equipment for free. So like the different stuff you can equip to your characters, and they're gonna swap it out every like 50 days or 60 days or so. So it's kind of this cool detail where you can go in, unlock all the stuff, and it has you keep playing the game because you can unlock more free equipment by playing, and then they'll change it out every season to give you more equipment. And there's no like paid for battle pass, so it's just all unlocked for free.
That's really handy.
Yeah, so there's some stuff I'm not a big fan of, but there's other stuff that's pretty pro consumer, so I guess it kind of balances itself out in other ways.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, just all depends. I already paid for the season pass, so I'm gonna have all of the characters coming out, including the two comic book characters, Omni-Man and Peacemaker.
Yeah, and Homelander is going to be in that too, right?
Yeah, The Boys started as a comic, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah,
So
Boys.
3 comic book characters.
Boys started off as a comic, Invincible was a comic, and Peacemaker came from comics. So.
Okay, well, new item for the Magical List of Wonder is to discuss comic book characters we want to see in Mortal Kombat 1.
Spawn.
Spawn was in Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah, put him in it again. And Rambo. Rambo's not from a comic book, but put him in the game.
Just bring them both back, I guess.
Just anyone who was ever in Mortal Kombat, just throw it in there.
Gotcha. Licensing always makes things tricky.
Yeah, we could put that on the Magical List of Wonder.
Yeah, true. not really news, but my wife and I picked up an N64 this past week.
Woo! Everybody cheer! Yeah!
Woo! So we bought 3 games on it.
Nice.
So, I bet you can't guess. Okay, so I'm going to give you the 3 games. I bet you can't guess which one my wife picked up and which 2 I picked up.
Okay, let's go. Give it to me.
All right, so the 3 games are The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Quest 64, and Bomberman Hero.
This is so easy, actually. Like you're just lousy on RPG, so you definitely picked up Quest 64. And Bomberman 64 sounds like a game you would go for specifically as well.
Excuse you, it's Bomberman Hero. Bomberman 64 is a completely different game.
And the fact that you would say that right here, right now, proves to me that you picked that one.
Well, I mean, it was obvious that my wife picked Ocarina of Time.
Right. Your wife is a big Zelda fan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so but it's the 1.1 version that we picked up, which is cool because it has all the stuff they removed when transitioning it to the 1.2. So they have some Islamic chanting in the background when you're in the Fire Temple. Then they also have the star and the moon on the mirror shield, and they also have it so that Ganondorf coughs up blood instead of weird green stuff.
I've been thinking about that Fire Temple theme.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't replace the chanting with anything, right? Like they just kind of make up a whole new musical piece.
No, it's the same song, and they replace the chanting with like a different like screaming noise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They didn't. From what I've heard, I don't know how accurate this is, but in essence, what I heard happen was they put that chanting into the game like, oh, this adds a lot to the game, but apparently it's kind of a sacred prayer that's being said. So to avoid any like disrespect to religious beliefs, as well as just to be mindful of those things, they removed the moon, the star, and the chanting.
Well, there's a There's a YouTube channel that I really, really love. It's what's his name? Shoot. I can't think of his name, but his whole deal is that he dives into the sound design of various Nintendo games.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually went as far as to be able to find the stock recording of the Muslim prayer that they used in the Fire Temple.
Oh, interesting.
And he translated it and kind of shared that with everyone, and it was kind of cool. And yeah, it is a sacred prayer of the Islamic religion, so it just makes sense.
I getcha.
I would have probably replaced the chanting with something in like Mongolian or Swahili or something.
That'd be pretty cool.
Okay. Here's actually what I would do. I would take the intro cutscene where they're talking about the three goddesses, would have translated that into Mongolian, and then used that as the chant in place of the Islamic prayer.
Okay. Pretty interesting ideas, I'd say.
Nice. Someone called Nintendo.
Yeah, have them make this change to all the cartridges.
Just they hijack everybody's cartridge and change the theme to like one of the best dungeons in that game.
Yeah, so we'll be on the lookout for more N64 games. So if we pick anything up, I'll keep you posted.
Happy to hear it.
Yeah, it's another console added to our collection where we have a lot of consoles. Man, the consoles alongside my gaming laptop, we just have so many games to play now.
So many games, so little life left to live.
True. Yeah, I don't think I will ever finish every single video game I bought. It's not going to happen. Oh yeah, and I may end up picking up Toy Story for the N64.
Dude, that's like the most subpar way to play that game. Do it.
Actually, I heard it's the best version for speedrunning.
Do you plan on speedrunning Toy Story 2?
Maybe. The tricks look pretty cool in it.
I've been able to pull off a couple.
Yeah, since that version only requires 30 of the Pizza Planet tokens, it's much faster.
Yeah, that would make it a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's some glitches and tricks in it that don't happen in the other versions, so yeah, I've been thinking about grabbing that version.
Probably just a difference in how cartridges and discs load up levels.
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I've been told, the N64 version is technically an older version, and it's similar to Ocarina of Time where there's multiple versions, so you gotta be mindful of that when you're buying a cart to make sure you don't buy the updated one with all of the bugs fixed and the 40 Pizza Planet tokens.
I see. Mm-hmm. Neat.
So anyways, that does it for me. So when Taylor isn't reading comic books, he's doing something. So Taylor, what's been going on in the world of comic books?
So as far as news that I've come across that I've really enjoyed, well, enjoyed is like a partial term, I guess. Our guy Alan Moore complained a lot about how DC was treating Watchmen.
Oh no! I totally know who Alan Moore is.
He's the guy who wrote Watchmen.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah, well, he's like a big enough name to where if he was really going to complain about how DC was treating Watchmen, you could just call him up at any time and say, I want to write another Watchmen, and they'd let him. Like, I don't get it. I don't get why he's upset about that. But
That's fair, yeah.
It started this whole thing where like a lot of people have been picking on DC Comics within the last couple of weeks for similar issues, and they all make about as much sense. Another big one is Tim Burton, the filmmaker, got upset at Warner Brothers and DC Comics for how for the most recent movie, the Flash movie, right? In that one, they used his version of Batman and his unproduced version of Superman. And he was getting all whiny about how they used both of those and he wasn't involved with it. And it's like, buddy, you're Tim Burton. if you want to make a Batman movie, you can just call them and they'll let you make a Batman movie.
On top of that, I don't know if Tim Burton would own the rights to Batman, you know?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. It's like, yeah, you talked with Michael Keaton a bunch when you were making your Batman movie, but that doesn't mean you own Michael Keaton's version of Batman. Michael Keaton doesn't own Michael Keaton's version of Batman.
That would be like Namco Bandai getting upset with Nintendo when if Nintendo decides to hire a different studio for the next Smash game.
Yeah. I mean, you could get upset, sure, and it might be an inconvenience and it might hurt relations, but Nintendo's allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
DC is allowed to make more Batman movies. They don't need Tim Burton's permission to do so.
Mm-hmm. And they've made multiple Batman movies since the Tim Burton versions.
Yeah. Yeah, like a bunch. And
so only now it's a problem, apparently.
Only now it's a problem. And so Tim Burton's upset at Warner Brothers and Alan Moore is upset at Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers is like, oh no, as they continue to be part of big industry drama and whatever. That's one big piece of news. Another piece of news I'm interested in is they announced that Spider-Man 2099 is going to be getting a new comic series, a new limited series, where he's fighting classical monsters in the future.
That's awesome.
So he's going to be fighting Dracula in the future, which I'm really stoked for. There's like a Wolfman he's going to be fighting in the future. It's like a cybernetic Wolfman. Oh, it looked kind of cool. And it's kind of cool because 2099 hasn't had a comic series for a while. It's been a few minutes since he's had his own.
I think we talked about that recently also.
I think we might have.
I can't remember if it was on the podcast or just over a phone call.
I don't know. Folks out there in listener land, sometimes we'll just call and chat because we're actually friends in real life. And we'll be saying stuff and it's like, dang it, this could be a podcast.
Why didn't we record this?
We should always be recording.
Yeah, so for some reason, Taylor likes to put up with me even outside of the podcast recording, so that's cool.
Oh, please, you're the one putting up with me.
I'm not so sure about that, but okay.
Whatever you say. That's the big like news stuff. As far as me, I had a huge week as far as comics are concerned. I went to Salt Lake Comic Con, and that was a fun thing to do. Oh my goodness, lots of stuff. Oh, with that, basic highlights. FanX isn't really a Comic Con so much as it's a pop culture convention. So there's all kinds of other stuff to do. And actually comic books have a somehow smaller presence than you would expect them to. But that was it's fun nonetheless. I went to a bunch of comic book related panels. One was about the death and return of Superman. And that one was a pretty good interactive panel, which was nice. Every time I go to a panel like that, I just think about how I should have my own panel, you know? It's like, oh, you guys are so smart, except I disagree with you and I want to say something.
So what if you could have a panel and you can make it any topic, what would you pick?
Okay. So I've been considering this because they take applications for this in January.
Oh, okay.
And when I talked to the people, they said that doing things like having a podcast or having a YouTube channel about comic books could go a long ways to legitimizing your claim for a panel. So,
hey, you have two of those things.
I do. I'm doing well. So, if I could do a panel on anything, I have a bunch of ideas. I'd love to do one on the canceled animated series, Spider-Man Unlimited. I would love to do one about how I think it'd be interesting to look at how Lois Lane has changed through the years, how her interpretation changed from the 30s to the 50s to the 70s to today, and how it ebbed and flowed with culture at the time. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, sounds like it.
The panels I did go to, I went to one where they compared Captain America's comic book stories to the contemporary American history. And that
Okay.
was absolutely fascinating. I did not realize how connected it all was together.
I mean, it makes sense.
It does. It does. And then I did a bunch of shopping, found some cool comic books, and we ended the convention by, you'll get a kick out of this. So it's a tradition at Salt Lake Comic Con that the last thing that happens at the convention is a big group sing along to Dr. Horrible.
Wait, really?
And so I ended the convention by sitting in a room with 800 other people, and we all sang along to Dr. Horrible's sing along blog, and it was awesome.
Wait, so what are all the different songs you did?
They start the movie and you sing along.
Oh, so it's the whole movie.
It's the whole movie.
That's awesome.
And it was so fun. It was sponsored by the Brown Coats, which are like the Firefly fan group.
Okay.
And they teamed up with Bikers Against Child Abuse. And it was a charity screening, so it cost a couple bucks to get in, but it's totally worth it. And then you get to sit in a room with 800 people and sing "Bad Horse, Bad Horse, Bad Horse, Bad Horse," and it was so fun. I loved it.
I bet you're glad I introduced you to it now.
Well, I would have looked real silly if I attended and didn't know the words.
Fair enough.
My sister and her friend were with me, and they watched it with me, and they didn't know all the words and the songs, and they enjoyed the movie well enough, but they're like, this probably would have been more fun of a first viewing if you could hear what people were saying.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't really be able to hear what they're saying during the songs because you're just hearing everybody in the room singing.
Well, during the dialogue bits too, like all the super iconic lines, everyone was voicing along with it. So it was like, you miss all the iconic lines, you miss all of the songs.
Oh, okay.
But it was a blast. I had so much fun.
That's awesome.
Everyone booed when Captain Hammer showed up on screen. And
what, during his first appearance during A Man's Gotta Do?
Yeah. And when he brought him up in the
Nice.
blog, called him Captain Hammer Corporate Tool, and everyone's like, boo, Captain Hammer.
Nice.
Then I picked up a bunch of comic books.
Makes sense.
Mostly Superman stuff, which also makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Made a bunch of videos too.
I'm wearing my Mario shirt today. Yesterday I was wearing my Superman shirt.
Oh, well, it's an audio podcast, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Well, it matters in my heart.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
I don't know what else you would expect.
Oh, golly. Oh. But yeah.
Anything else then?
Oh, I guess that's basically Comic-Con. Oh, I did pick up a video game.
Oh, what was it?
I found the Game Boy. It's not really a tie-in. It's a completely different game, but the Game Boy equivalent of Superman 64.
Oh, okay.
So you know how Superman 64 isn't very good?
Oh yeah, I'm planning to pick it up for the N64 eventually.
Oh, you definitely should, but it's not good. Superman 64 on the Game Boy is also not good.
Okay.
But it's not good because it is, it's so dumb. It's so hard. Okay, so the first enemy sucker punches you. Like they hide the bad guy, and then he just shows up and starts shooting at you. And Superman does not move quickly. And I'm over here like, but I'm Superman. Why am I so slow?
Is it this one that's just called Superman for like the original Game Boy? So it's like all green?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
it's also made by Titus. Nice. Anyway.
It is. It's the same people. But bad guy shows up, shoots me, and I'm like, I'm Superman. How did I not move fast enough? Also, I'm Superman. Why did the bullet hurt? And then I get hit by a grenade and it's like, but I'm Superman. Why am I getting hit with a grenade? Why does the grenade hurt? And then they're all like, in order to pass this level, you have to collect 4 keys. And I'm like, why do I have to collect keys? I'm Superman. I'll just break down the door.
No, it's a kryptonite door, probably.
No, because it's like very based off of the animated series. And the animated series, like the first level, you fight the Lexoskel, which is the first episode arc of the animated series. So it's like it's more faithful to the source material than the 64 game is, technically speaking, I suppose. But why am I looking for keys? And then the second level, it's an auto scroller, and you're still looking for keys. What if you miss one of the keys during the auto scrolling section?
Did you
can't
find out
go
what
backwards. No, because I got all 2 keys. But again, why am I collecting keys? I'm Superman. I could just break down the door.
Fair enough.
It's a stupid game, but I got it. So,
Did you just want to pick it up because Superman?
well, that, and also I've been getting a lot more into get my Game Boy Advance recently,
Oh, okay.
and I wanted to try and like fill out the library with things I think would be somewhat entertaining for a couple of minutes. And it was entertaining for a couple of minutes, but
All right.
it's
cool.
also not very good.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
You get 5 continues, and I used up 4 of my continues on the first level. So it's like,
Oh, nice.
oh no. And every time you die, he flies off, and they're all like, oh, Superman flew off to the Fortress of Solitude to regain his energy. It's like, I have enough energy to fly to the North Pole, but I don't have enough energy to continue walking down the street.
No, don't be ridiculous.
And then I get back, and all of my keys are reset. It's like, did Superman not keep the 3 keys he already found?
No, they fell off of his belt while he ran away.
I went back to the spot where I picked him up initially.
Yep.
It's so
They
dumb.
just happened to fall in the exact spots you were initially.
You know what it actually reminded me of? It reminded me of when you and I tried out Justice League Heroes a while back
Man.
for the first time. And the first level is just perfect. It's like, oh, hey, Superman and Batman. That's perfect. I'm going to play a Superman because I love the character. And I'm walking, and it's like, oh, that trash can is on fire. I'm just going to walk through it. And then it kills me. And it's like, why did that catch me on fire? I'm Superman. Ugh.
Okay,
Hey.
so we got our first email request this week.
Woo! Yeah, and remember, you can always email us. We're always happy to see what you have to share. You can get us at GC Squared Podcast. That's GCSQUARED podcast at gmail.com. And we will look at your emails. We will read them. We will love them. We will frame them and put them up on the wall. Maybe go ahead and shoot us
I
an
don't know
email.
if I can commit to that.
Go ahead and shoot us an email. But our first email reads, Hey, GC2. First of all, I want to say that I love the podcast and I'm always excited to see another episode drop. Aw, you guys are hilarious, have wonderful taste in media, and are always so positive. Speaking of, I think it's about time that I turn down the positivity words a bit with my question. I know you guys are into comics and video games, and I like hearing which are your favorite, but how about the opposite side of the spectrum? What are some of your least favorite comics and video games? They could be objectively bad, or maybe just some popular ones that you couldn't bring yourself to enjoy. Thanks for all the great content, and keep it coming. Your friend, Tanner.
All right. First off, thanks for the email, Tanner. We appreciate it. And yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. So this is the episode that gets us to become controversial, right?
Right. This is how we become big podcasters. Like, people are going to react to this and be like, I can't believe that these 2 podcast hosts said this controversial thing.
I feel I have some unpopular opinions when it comes to certain video games, so that'll be interesting.
Oh, and I know I have some unpopular opinions as well. So boy, you go ahead. Yeah, tell us something.
So first thing I want to mention is remember that these are just opinions and just things that we don't like / we feel are bad about video games, but you don't need to be angry or get upset at people because they have different opinions than you.
Thanks for the wise words of wisdom. I guess the podcast is over.
There always has to be that disclaimer with these type of subjects. But I will say that I'm very appreciative of Tanner giving us this topic because I feel like it's a very interesting topic that we can definitely build off of and will lead to interesting conversations. So very good email, in my opinion.
And not only that, I don't know if I would have planned to bring up this topic, at least not like for a long time. So it's nice that it got brought up and now we get to talk about it because I don't know when we would have otherwise.
Well, at the end of the day, we're just two people with two brains. So, we can only think of so much. So it's appreciated when people bring up their questions so we can expand on topics that we may have not considered in the past.
Yeah, so please send us emails. It'll be great.
All right, here we go. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about this one, though, Taylor, but I adore Xenoblade Chronicles.
Shut up. No.
Yeah, I know, right? And I adore Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I cannot stand Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Insert gasping noise.
Yeah, a lot of people love that game, but I can't stand it.
Well, what's wrong with it?
Okay. So first off, it takes the game infinity amount of time to get anywhere. Like, it just kind of feels like you're just kind of going with things and doing whatever for the first while. Like, oh, we're trying to get to Elysium, I guess. While Xenoblade 1 did a really good job of having an established purpose of what your group's trying to do. You're trying to stop the Mechon and to get revenge for Shulk as to what happens in the beginning of the game.
Isn't that just kind of an RPG thing, though? Like, you show up and you play for 3 hours before they start talking about the magic crystals or whatever.
But that's the thing. We're talking 20 to 30 hours in with Xenoblade 2.
That's a very long time.
Yeah. Where it's just kind of like, oh, I guess we're trying to get to the tree kind of and keep getting distracted by stuff.
Okay.
Yep. So that's my first issue with it. Though I will admit, once it starts picking up, the story gets really good. The biggest reason why I could not get through that game was the combat.
Yeah, I mean, you punch the guy in the face, then you wait patiently for your turn to come back, and then you go again.
Well, here's the thing. That's not how it works in the Xenoblade series. It's an action RPG.
Oh, so it's a real video game.
Hey. Don't you be crapping on my favorite genre now.
Yeah, I know. It's just
I love all RPGs.
We were talking about being controversial, and I just got really in the mood. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. Like I said, it's fine for people to have different opinions. I know you don't like turn-based combat, and that's fine.
Yeah, I'll stop being a butt about it now. You can continue.
Good. You're good. I just thought it would be funny if I commented something like that. That's all. Anyway, so here's the thing. Let me set the stage for you. So Xenoblade Chronicles 1. What happens is you get all these different arts you can use. 8 arts that are loaded at a time with a 9th art that can activate under different circumstances. Now, to make the most use of your arts, what you have to do is you have to position yourself correctly around enemies to maximize the damage. For example, with Shulk, if you stand behind the enemy and use backslash, you'll deal a ton of damage to them. However, you have to be very mindful of how you use the arts and when, because you can't have Shulk's aggro get too high or else he's going to get decimated. You have to balance your arts, be mindful of what your teammates are doing, like your tank who's drawing aggro, so you can work around that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is the game has an auto attack system where as you're positioning and moving around, your characters are automatically hitting enemies. And your arts just recharge with time. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, they have a system where you have 6 arts active at a time. And you can use them as you see fit, reposition yourself. The difference being, though, is that you'll only auto attack if you're standing still. However, that can be useful because if you're drawing a lot of aggro, you can kind of have your character awkwardly shimmy back and forth to not auto attack enemies and to really maximize like your aggro lowering while your teammates take care of that. And they just have like a bunch of different systems that keep the game interesting, like it's the first game where you're able to switch between your characters on the fly, and you have 6 controllable characters in combat at once, so you can just swap between them as you see fit. And
Okay.
there's a ton of customization with the classes. Like there's a butt ton of classes you unlock. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Right.
What happens in this game is, yeah, you have special effects on your special moves. And yeah, you have auto attacks. The auto attacks only occur if you're standing still, which is fine because, you can work around that. However, your characters move at a snail's pace.
Oh.
So because of that, with how much time it takes you to reposition yourself to attack enemies, by the time you've moved to the position you need to be at to deal the extra damage is so minuscule that would have been better if you just sat still and continued auto attacking them.
Oh.
On top of that, so your characters are ridiculously sluggish during combat. You can use up to 3 arts at a time and have one like special art you can activate under certain conditions. And you can swap between different characters' blades, which is like just the different characters that stand next to you and help you fight. And you can swap between them. However, doing so, in my experience, doesn't have too much of an advantage. So, like, you can do it if you want, and it can have its advantages with certain enemies being weak to certain types of moves, but generally speaking, it's not the most useful thing ever. And on top of all of that, attacks take a while to reload. So combat in that game for me consisted of me standing still, waiting and auto attacking the enemy, and then pressing a single button every 5 to 10 seconds.
That sounds like very riveting gameplay.
I know, right? So I would do that, and that's how combat would go every single time. And on top of that, while this did happen in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, there were so many characters in your party and you could draw so many enemies to you at once, it really wasn't an issue. But you can equip your tank with an accruing aggro every second ability. So on top of all that, now I don't even have to worry about juggling my arts or my aggro because my teammate is building aggro every second and I will never out aggro him.
Right. You just kind of like set it up and it just goes.
Yep. So literally the gameplay became me standing still, pressing a button every 5 to 10 seconds, and then enemies having a butt ton of health, so then fights would also take forever.
That's no fun at all.
Yeah, so like standard combat fights, like I kid you not, there were boss fights in that game that would take me like 30 minutes to an hour with like how little damage I dealt. And yeah, I could use chain attacks and stuff as well to deal more damage. But just in my experience, it just took forever to do anything.
And you still have to sit there and watch it because you still have to push a button every 5 seconds or so.
Exactly. So if you're not doing that, you're not maximizing your damage.
So you're just like there.
Yeah. So
you
it's
can't do
an
anything.
action. So it's an action RPG combat where it feels more like you're playing a turn-based game.
At that point, is it even really an action game?
Apparently it is. So yeah, I do not like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I played the game for about 40 hours before I finally gave up and sold it to someone.
Did you sell it for an okay price?
I said sell, but I actually traded a game for it.
Did you get a good game?
I'd say so. I traded Fire Emblem. Oh gosh, which one is it? It's one of the 3DS ones.
Well, I mean, Fire Emblem is a solid series from what I understand, so.
Okay, I traded it for Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, which in my opinion was a good trade.
Nice.
Yep. So there you go. I am not a fan of Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Oof.
Even though Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is my favorite game and Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is my second favorite game.
Well, there you go. I guess everyone has that awkward like middle kid.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, there are people that love the game and good for them. It just didn't work for me.
No, that's fair. That's fair to say because like everyone is different and people are going to get intrigued and struck by different things.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's your turn now, Taylor.
Okay. in 1985, I wasn't born yet, but in 1985, there was a Batman book released. Okay.
Mhm.
Fast forward to circa 2017, 2018. I'm at BYU, Idaho. I'm running the comic book workshop.
Mhm.
And I would set up my booth, and I would be sitting at my booth being like, hey, everyone, come see the comic book workshop. We talk about comic books. And without fail, every week, somebody would come up to the table and say, oh my goodness, I love comic books. In fact, I have the best comic book ever written at my house. Do you know what it is? And I knew what it was. I knew what they were going to say. But, trying to be a good host, I'll humor them. And they always said it like this: The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, published in 1985. They always said it like that. This book is so big that it completely changed how Batman was written forever. It completely changed Batman and Superman's friendship forever. It got turned into an episode of the animated series, got turned into an animated movie, got a prequel, got 2 sequels, and I absolutely hate this book.
So clearly, it has some kind of attention from the fact that there's so much based around it. So I'm curious what it is that other people see in it versus what it is that you don't like about it.
Okay, so the common argument that this book gets is that Batman was portrayed very, very differently before this book and then after this book. And it's because that this story tried really, really hard to bring back a golden age version of Batman. Something that was a little bit, not even a little bit, but that was a lot darker, had a much more grounded sense of what justice is supposed to be. So like, you had the Adam West thing going on before this point where Batman would sometimes do really silly stuff. This was about as not silly as Batman could get. And it was supposed to be like the final word on Batman. Like, Frank Miller wrote this with the idea that if we were to get the end of Batman, this is what it's supposed to be. And it was this dark and gritty story about a guy who was at the end of the line, had decided to come back and be Batman after a long absence, beat the crap out of all kinds of criminals, and upset the status quo and all kinds of stuff. So it's a very rebellious book for the time, both in themes and just the environment that it was written in. And that's the big common argument. The art style for it is incredibly different than what Batman had been beforehand, because what DC Comics would do is they had like a house style throughout the 50s all the way up through the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was whoever got on these books had to somewhat copy this art style, had to copy the house style.
Okay.
So Frank Miller comes in, writes this book, draws this book. He doesn't follow the house style. So it looks very, very different than what you would expect Batman to look like, because he doesn't look like any other book. He looks like Frank Miller's version.
Gotcha.
Now, there's that. And the story itself is fine. But I really, really, really did not like this book. I read it for the first time and didn't like it, and I keep trying to revisit it, hoping that I find something I missed, and it just doesn't strike a chord with me. So, first thing has to do with the paneling and pacing of the book. In comic books, it's generally regarded that you don't put more than 12 panels on a page. And if you're going to, and like the closer you get to 12 panels, the less words you should have on the page as well. That's kind of a general consensus. And then, like, if you only have like one panel on the page, you probably don't need a whole lot of words there either. There's a balance that needs to be struck, and this book does not hit that balance. You'll open up this book and you'll get like 15 to 20 panels on a page, and just long paragraphs of text in between these very, very, very small panels.
Mhm.
And it drives me nuts because it's like you're not utilizing either element here properly. I'm reading too many words as compared to the images. The images aren't all that good because they're the size of a quarter. And
So,
ugh,
is there any particular reason why this like 12 panel rule was established?
it's just kind of what was found most comfortable. Uh, comics kind of experimented all the way up to this point to try and find the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is actually 9.
Okay.
It's a 3x3 grid is kind of the sweet spot that comics eventually did settle into. And when I would teach it, I would teach people, look, figure out the 3x3 grid, because once you figure that out, you can do anything you want. But 12 is about as far as you were expected to go. So it's a 4x3 for a 12. Yeah.
Okay.
That's about as far as like you can really get before the page gets too crowded, is the general consensus of that.
Okay, gotcha. Like just too much going on and too hard to read and look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it. But Frank Miller doesn't obey that general rule. It's not really a rule, but it's a good guideline, and he breaks it, which makes his paneling feel really messy. And then the coloring for it, art has to match the tone of what the book is going for. And the tone of The Dark Knight is supposed to be really dark, really grounded, really like kind of uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
He uses really light, like almost colored pencil colors for this book, and it jars really hard against the tone.
Okay.
And it jars really hard against the penciling. Like the penciling is all scratchy and stuff, and then you have like these bright, almost pastel colors through it. It jars me. It doesn't feel good to me. And they fixed that in the animated versions, actually. Like the animated versions don't do that, but they do in the comic. And then
Gotcha.
I don't think it characterized any of the established superheroes very well. So for instance, like part of the background premise, they don't spell this out, but you get it over the course of the book, is that everyone hated the superheroes. And so the government started mandating them. And everyone went into hiding. Everyone stopped being a superhero. Wonder Woman went back to Paradise Island. The only one who's really still doing superhero work is Superman. And he's doing it under the direction of the government.
Okay.
So he's like, he does a lot of things that are just government errands, which
that feels like it kind of goes against what Superman is.
Yeah, a bit. And the problem is that since this was such a big book, the way that it interpreted all of these characters carried forward into everything else. So you have Superman, who's painted as a corporate tool in this book, a government tool, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of established like this, Superman will just do whatever the government tells him. And they kept that mentality for quite a few years afterwards, which doesn't gel with Superman before or really too much long after this book. Like 86, he was already like not the government's favorite person, but this one book makes everyone think that he is. And then Batman is actively fighting against the government. He's not nice to anyone. He's a huge, colossal jerk. And it kind of painted this picture that, Batman only surrounds himself with people because he's Batman and it pleases him. And in fact, the prequel to this book, he is just the most unlikable person on the planet. And in the sequels, he's terrible. So it made Batman look so jaded and so broken as compared to every other interpretation I've seen. The animated series portrayed him as like this kind person who was actively trying to help people be better.
Mm-hmm.
The Dark Knight Returns, no, he's the surgeon, and this is the operating table, and he's cutting the cancer out, is the example that he gives within the book.
Okay.
And then you have Oliver Queen, who he's super angry and angsty against all superheroes, which doesn't make sense compared to the 1970s hard traveling heroes where his best friend was Green Lantern. And then as a diehard Superman fan, all of the arguments that they give for Batman beating Superman in this book are so always taken out of context. And I hate the conversation that follows with it. Everyone's all like, oh, but Batman beat Superman at The Dark Knight Returns. And it's like, yeah, well, number one, it was a Batman book. What did you expect? Number two, you're forgetting that right before this, Superman was hit with a nuke and he survived the nuke. Number three, you're forgetting that he was also fighting off kryptonite poisoning from a kryptonite arrow right before this confrontation. Number four, yeah, Batman pinned him and then immediately had a heart attack and died. He didn't really win. Like, if any one of those things was even slightly different or slightly less. So just don't start using this book as an example why Batman is better than Superman, dang it. They're different. Neither one is better than the other. Ugh, I hate that book a lot.
I get you. You feel like it's apples versus oranges in that regard.
Yeah, that one's apples versus oranges, but the book itself is just not nearly as good as everyone seems to think it is. It has some very fundamental problems in what I would call the grammar of comic books. It breaks the art form in ways that just do not work for me.
Gotcha. Feeling fired up?
I feel like I just got something out of my system.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so go ahead and send your hate mail to the email address. Do you have another one?
Yes, I'm trying to think if I should go with like one of my really controversial ones or a different one or what.
Oh, go controversial.
Oh gosh, are you sure? People may hate me after this.
Oh, I just insulted the most popular comic book ever written by DC Comics, like ever published by DC Comics. I think you'll be fine.
Shall we get to my interesting opinion?
I want to hear the most controversial opinion you've ever had.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, you're gonna get it then.
Okay. You hate Kingdom Hearts.
No, I enjoy Kingdom Hearts. Compared to the other games in the series, Ocarina of Time's pretty average.
Hold on. I said a controversial opinion, not a wrong one.
Yeah, that's my controversial opinion.
Wow. Care to back up such a statement?
Oh, yeah. So let me put it like this, okay? I did not grow up with Ocarina of Time.
That's okay. I didn't either.
I played it a little bit in passing, but my first time I actually got to sit down and play the game for myself, I was about 14 years old.
Yeah, I was in college.
So because of that, I don't have rose-colored glasses that a lot of people that grew up with the game have. So because of that, I feel like the game falls short in a lot of ways that later Zelda games don't.
Sure.
For example, the Z targeting in that game sucks. It's so bad. Do you know how many times while playing that game I've tried to lock on to an enemy? I'll stand, face the enemy directly. I'll click Z target to lock onto them. Instead, Link looks at a thing on the ceiling.
I can see that.
It happens a lot. And yeah, I get it. You know, Navi indicates what you're going to lock onto. And I get that the game does that to let you know, hey, you're going to lock onto that. But my point is, being someone that's played plenty of modern games and later Zelda games that don't have that issue, that bothers me a lot and causes me a lot of problems while I'm trying to play.
I see.
Because the other games in the series later on are better at being context sensitive about that. The hitbox on Link's sword is very finicky, in my opinion. It's really hard to land hits in different situations, and you have to be right up in their faces. Enemies, the combat's not that deep or like challenging. Like, there have been so many enemies where all I have to do is either hold up my shield, then attack them occasionally, or I wait for them to start their attack animation. I back up 2 steps, let them do the hit, step forward, and then I hit them a few times. I will give credit where credit's due in saying that the bosses are usually well designed and a lot of fun, but the standard enemies are boring and feel like a chore to fight. There's nothing crazy or awesome there that like I think's great. The story really doesn't stand out to me that much. All it really is hey, you're this little kid that's chosen to stop Ganondorf, and you have to go collect these 3 crystals, then jump forward in time and collect these, and then get the sages together and defeat Ganondorf. Like, it's not that deep of a story, but people like act like it's like the pinnacle of storytelling, and like there's so much cool stuff that happens. It's a straightforward story.
Yeah, that's
If you want a deep story in a Zelda game that's not straightforward, that leaves a ton of room for interpretation, has a lot of deep layers in it, you play Majora's Mask.
yeah.
To add to all of this, I am of the personal belief that if the game was exactly the same and released nowadays and didn't have the Zelda brand attached to it, people would have said it was an average to bad game.
So some very, very bold things have been said. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. What did you
I
think
told
of
you it's controversial.
what did you think of the 3DS remake though?
Ooh, okay. I think they fixed a lot of issues in the 3DS remake, and I think I would prefer to play it over the original.
Have you played it?
Yes, I have played it.
Okay.
It runs better. The Z targeting works properly. It still has some of the same issues of the same story type and, having like not very fun combat against standard enemies, but I feel like it does fix up a lot of things. So I enjoyed the 3DS version.
Okay. I never played the N64 version. I've only ever played the 3DS one. But my impression of the 3DS one was okay. I can't speak for the story because like story is story. But I wonder if some of the mechanic stuff is just, these were the necessary first wobbly steps they had to take, right?
Oh yeah, I get that.
That doesn't really defend story at all.
Like, I get that with the gameplay. You got to start somewhere. There are things you got to work around, and there are limitations with the system. So because of that, I feel like Ocarina of Time was a really, really good N64 game, but it's an average Zelda game compared to other things that have come out. Heck, I even prefer some of the older Zelda games over Ocarina of Time.
Well, I played a little bit of Link Between Worlds.
Link Between Worlds was a 3DS game.
Then it must have been Link to the Past.
Yeah, Link to the Past. That was an NES game.
Yeah. NES or SNES?
Oh, I meant SNES. My bad.
Yeah, I played a bit of that one and absolutely adored it. Yeah,
that's one I was referring to, where I would prefer to... I like Link to the Past better than Ocarina of Time. I also like the Oracle games better than Ocarina of Time. I feel like both of those ones did an excellent job of perfecting the 2D Zelda formula. I feel like Ocarina of Time was a good first step for 3D Zelda, but I feel like later games are better, and I also feel like it was good for the time, but I don't think it's aged well, and I don't think it's this pinnacle of perfection that so many people put it on a pedestal for.
Okay, I think I can accept that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Again, I don't have any nostalgia for the game myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder, like, for opinions like with Ocarina of Time, if that's a nostalgia blindness thing, or if it's a legitimate, I actually think this is the best thing ever kind of thing,
I'm of the opinion that I think it's nostalgia blindness, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. The story is nothing to write home about. It's, I guess there's like smaller elements within the story.
Oh yeah, there's smaller elements of the story that add to it a lot. Like, I think a lot of the side quests add a ton to the world and add a lot to the game and the world building. I feel like the world building is where the story shines in Ocarina of Time. It's an interesting world. It's one you want to learn more about. It's one that you want to do more side quests in. But I think the main story isn't anything to write home about.
I feel like there really aren't that many side quests in that game either. There's
quite a few.
Is there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't know if I ever came across any of them. There's the spider people, which
Mhm.
I didn't want to participate in that. I wanted to burn the house. Like when they got together for the town meeting to decide what to do with the spider people, I'm like, let's just burn the house.
Mhm.
Let's
Well,
just end their misery now.
like to kind of put things in perspective, like there are quite a few things you can do in that game. You can go fishing. There's the arrow mini game. There's the side quest involving the Skulltula, which you just explained on like discovering fairy fountains and see how fairies are incorporated into the world. I pulled up an IGN side quest list to help me remember everything. The Big Oron sword quest, I think, is a really cool concept and a really cool idea. Getting Epona and like seeing the ways that Malin interacts with her father and that sleazy guy that they're with. I can't remember his name. Yeah, Malin Talon, and then there's the third dude that looks like Luigi.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but oh, Malin, my girl. uh no, so what was I getting at? I was talking about okay, here's what I was getting at. The more interesting story in Ocarina of Time is actually what Zelda Sheik had to go through.
Yeah.
If the game was told from that perspective instead, I that would be a far more interesting story to me than I'm opened up the temple. Shoot, that was the wrong thing to do. I guess I went through puberty, and then you do stuff while
Go find the
vaguely
sages.
looking like Leonardo DiCaprio.
I looked it up on the Zelda fandom, by the way. It's Ingo is the name of the Luigi looking guy.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like the side quests and the characters do a lot of good for the world building. I feel like Ocarina of Time has excellent world building, but I don't think the story's that great.
No, I think I can agree with you there. It's pretty cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
If Link could express himself even a little bit, and if we got to hear things like, there's this moment that must have happened, but we don't get to see like anyone's reaction to it. Where
Mm-hmm.
Link sits down and realizes the only reason why Ganon was able to take over the kingdom is because he, as a kid, made the stupid choice to open up the temple and leave the Triforce of Power, the Triforce of everything, just exposed.
I think that's a very good point, actually. As since Link is a silent hero, we miss out on a lot of things that could have added so much more depth to the story if we got a feel for what Link was going through and what he was feeling. Because otherwise, he's just more or less a blank slate. Like,
Yeah,
because at the end of the game, when he's back in his little kid form, yeah, he's a little kid, but he has the mind of his teenage self that's gone through all this stuff at fought Ganondorf, you know?
yeah.
And it'd be kind of interesting to kind of see that viewpoint from him.
Well, somebody suggested that that's what the beginning of Majora's Mask really is. Navi disappears,
Mm-hmm.
and Link needs to go and find Navi because literally nobody else on the planet can understand what he went through.
Mm-hmm.
Navi is the only one who gets it. So,
Yeah.
So like I've heard that that's the explanation for how Majora's Mask actually begins. But you're right, because Link is a silent protagonist. I would have loved for like maybe the second or third time Sheik shows up, I would have loved to see Link just go off on Sheik. Just be like, look, I have no idea what you're trying to do. I don't know why you're being all mysterious ninja. I don't know why you aren't actively helping. I think you need to get off the sidelines. Like, I would have loved to see that.
Yeah.
And I again, if there was like a cutscene where he was like sitting at a campfire and just falls apart because he realizes that all of this is kind of his fault, that would be really cool to see too. Like it's just that there's a story here, but because we have to be quiet, we can't see it.
Yeah, here's the thing. The silent protagonist has its pros and cons ultimately, because one of the biggest pros of the silent protagonist is you're able to put yourselves in your character's shoes. Like, for example, imagine if you played Skyrim, but you were playing through the eyes of a specific character rather than your own character you made where you're the Dovahkiin.
Sure.
Like, it has its place and it has its advantages. It allows you to feel like you're the hero of time. You feel like you're Link. You can put yourself in his shoes. But then, as we've explained, we then sacrifice story depth and character development by doing that.
And for something like Zelda, where Nintendo claims this is their big storytelling series, should Link be talking? Is that what we've come to? Is that Link needs to say stuff?
I think maybe the best approach would, if you want the best of both worlds, it would be really cool if Link remains silent, but there was either a way to hear his thoughts or he like keeps like a diary or something. And as you progress through the game, you unlock more personal entries that Link has written into, and you can hear his inner thoughts about what has happened.
They do a little bit of that in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, they have like the flashbacks and stuff.
Well, they have the flashbacks, but there's occasional moments where you can like it's hidden. But in some people's journals, they'll say that they'll talk about things that Link apparently said off camera.
Oh, okay. Before he took his vow of silence.
Well, apparently it's not a vow of silence. Like in Zelda's journal, you can read Zelda's diary, remembering that she's watching you during this entire event. She's like, geez, he's reading my diary now. And in it, she mentions that Link said to her in words that he doesn't speak very much because he feels like his duty is to just do things and not complain about it or even comment on it. It's like, that is some great storytelling. I can get behind that. I need Link to say more stuff.
Yeah, like, imagine if, like, instead of, like, Navi speaking for you, you instead could hear, like, Link's inner thoughts.
Or even this, like, if we don't want to give him a voice actor, fine. But I think about Red Dead Redemption 2, where, like, isn't very often that you'll see Arthur Morgan, the protagonist, pull out his journal, write something down, and put it back in his back pocket. And you can pull out that journal anytime, and you can see, like, his comments and reactions to things he sees out in the Old West.
Okay.
Maybe something like that. So now we don't need Link to say anything, but we can still at least read what he's saying.
Yeah, a game that does that extremely well that I would have liked to see implemented in Ocarina of Time was how Pikmin 1 handles it. Whereas you're playing through the game between days and when certain events happen, Olimar keeps a captain's log where he updates it and gives his thoughts, and you see a lot of his personality through that.
That's great. And with the Sheikah Slate, there's no reason not to do something like that.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Like, he has this thing, he might as well be keeping an adventure journal in it.
Like, could you imagine if, like, you went to use the campfire, but, like, as you're, like, sitting in front of the campfire during certain moments where you're sitting still, you could just see Link pull out his Sheikah Slate and, like, texting on it like it's a phone?
That's a thing. That would be sick. That would be like that extra bit of like immersion that I would really love to see. And then, if you don't want to hear what's going on in Link's head, you don't have to read it, but it is there if you want.
Yeah, it's that flavored text of extra lore for the people that want it.
Yeah, especially in a game like that where you can't change Link's name, you can't really personalize Link very much because the cutscenes are so in depth anyway.
Yeah,
I can't put myself in Link's shoes very easily in that one. Not like the earlier ones.
I personally tend to struggle to put myself in a character's shoes if, one, I didn't make the character myself, or two, it's taking place from a third-person perspective.
Yeah, well, I don't have much of a problem with the third-person perspective thing, but Character Customizer does a lot for me.
Oh, well, what I mean by that is, I like playing games in the third-person perspective, and I'm completely fine with that. I'm just saying I personally mentally struggle to put myself in a character's shoes if I'm not seeing directly through their eyes.
Yeah, I getcha.
Like, there's that dissonance between us.
I understand. I just don't like first-person games.
Fair enough. All right, well, you got another video. Well, I guess mine was kind of interesting because, like,
Well, we went
I
a lot
don't-
of directions with that.
yeah, I don't dislike Ocarina of Time. I want to make that clear. I don't dislike it, but I dislike how much people view it as this perfect game.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And that causes me to dislike, like, how do I phrase this? That causes me to look down on the game more.
I get it.
Mhm.
So there we go. You heard it here first, folks. Garrett hates Zelda.
Yeah, my favorite Zelda game totally isn't Wind Waker.
Your favorite Zelda game is something else.
Yep. I'm a big fan of the Wand of Gamelon because Link has a personality in that game.
Oh, no. Oh, shoot. That's right. Ah.
Anyway, what do you got for us?
That was really interesting that you brought that up. That was a cool that was a cool one. I don't know if mine's going to be that cool. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be.
Well, let's hear it though.
So they're both kind of short. So I'll combine them.
Okay.
There are two books that DC Comics will recommend to, like DC Comics corporate and marketing will tell everyone that they need to read if they want to understand Superman.
Okay.
These are All-Star Superman and Superman for Tomorrow is what it's called. I hate both of those books. And they are not great recommendations for anyone who's trying to get into the character. So
so what's causing that, separation then?
Let's start with All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman is always marketed as like this is your first starting point with the character. It really shouldn't be. That should be like a way later book because it covers a lot of very Silver Age ideas that just don't make a whole lot of sense against modern comics, like things that we wouldn't have thought about since the 60s. He'll have
I don't
yeah. Let me explain. So
yeah.
there's a bit of a difference between how Superman's world was portrayed in the 50s and 60s and how it was portrayed in like the 70s onward.
Okay.
And the difference is just how outlandish things could be. You would have like today you wouldn't see anything like this, but in the 60s it was a regular occurrence where Superman would hop into his time machine, go into the 31st century and just hang out with his buddies for a weekend, or he'll go back and hang out with his dad at college and on Krypton. He'll just do ridiculous stuff like that. And in All-Star Superman, they bring a lot of that ridiculousness back. He has a pet sun eater, and he feeds this pet sun eater by building miniature suns on an anvil that he has in the Fortress of Solitude. Very outlandish stuff.
Okay.
He's bored, so he needs a hobby. So what he decides to do is he fishes the Titanic out from the bottom of the ocean and started refurbishing it.
Oh my gosh.
He wanted to give Lois a special surprise for her birthday and invented a potion that will give her superpowers for 24 hours. And then he arm wrestles Samson and Hercules for the affections of Lois Lane.
Okay.
Very silly stuff like that. And it has its place. And it's fun in context, but it's fun in a very specific context. All-Star Superman, it works, but only after you've already accepted that there's this period in history where Superman was incredibly popular and he did super outlandish stuff like this. Oh, one of my favorite examples. I have this book from the 60s, the Superman book from the 60s, where his old girlfriend, Laurie Lemaris, who is a mermaid. It's important to recognize that Superman was dating a mermaid for a good long time. She got hit with like a harpoon and she was going to die. So what he did was he searched every scientist on the planet to find a way to save her. and no one on the planet knew how to save her. So he starts flying to literally every planet in the universe that has mermaids on it, asking for them to find a cure for his girlfriend. And he finds one guy who's willing to go to Earth and help save her. And then the guy goes to Earth, saves her, and Laurie is like, actually, I think I really like the doctor who saved my life. I'm going to date him instead.
Oof.
So it's like very outlandish, but it was really popular. So a good chunk of people wrote Superman like this, or viewed him like this in any case.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what All-Star Superman is. It's really hard to accept if you can't already accept silliness, you know? And I don't like how DC markets that as a beginner's book.
Is it because you feel like Superman isn't really that silly anymore? Is much more serious now?
Yeah. Yeah. Like he hasn't been that outlandish since the 60s. Ever since, he's been a lot more grounded. He doesn't just go to the 31st century. He doesn't just travel the universe to find a doctor to save his mermaid girlfriend. He does. He's a lot more grounded than that. But All-Star is a letter to a very specific era of the character. And then For Tomorrow. For Tomorrow is also marketed to people as a beginning reader for Superman. It really shouldn't be recommended at all because it's not good. I've read this book so many times. I cannot tell you what it's about. I have no idea. Like nothing is explained very well. They bring in characters who have no consequence to things, but maybe they do. So it starts off and it's all like, oh, a year has gone by since this big tragedy. And they never say what the tragedy is clearly. I think what happened is that Superman pushed a button on the Phantom Zone projector and it put everyone into the Phantom Zone, or like Thanos snapped half of the world's population into the Phantom Zone. And then he wiped his memory of the event.
Okay.
But it was like, he did it for a reason, but I don't know what the reason was. And General Zod is there, but I don't know why he's there. This was supposed to be like his big grand return to comics, but I don't know what he was trying to do. There's this guy who's going after Wonder Woman, but I don't know why Wonder Woman's even a part of this book. The reason why it's a big deal is because Jim Lee drew it. And Jim Lee is like this legend who redefined the X-Men in the 80s. No, in the 70s. That was his thing he did in the 70s. And then he became this huge independent guy in the 90s, and he became the president of DC Comics like maybe 5 years ago. So he's really, really good. And the art is really good. And the art was like standard Superman marketing art for years and years and years and years and years. In fact, for Man of Steel, the movie, all they did was they recolored Jim Lee's art from that book. But
oh, dang.
The story is hot garbage, and I can't tell you what it's actually about. I don't know what the point is. I don't know who any of the characters are, but they keep marketing it as, oh, look, this is a great Superman book. It's not. There's better ones. Yeah, you got this big superstar artist on it, but that doesn't make it a good book. But it's like, if you don't like this book, then you don't like Superman. Well, I don't like the book. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like with video games and stuff, you can get by with having a story that doesn't make sense or having a story that's not that great. You can't really get by with that in a comic book, you know?
Well, in a video game, I would argue that the main purpose of a video game as a medium is to give you like player action versus consequence. I do something, a consequence happens. Comic books are more passive. You're reading a book. The story has to make sense.
Yeah.
It can be outlandish. That's fine. Like All-Star Superman is a fine book. It's outlandish, but it's fine. For Tomorrow, though, 0 sense. Has no semblance of sense. Great pictures, but that can only take you so far.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, during this whole thing, I noticed you were relatively vague with like the story and stuff, but then now that you mentioned that, it doesn't really make much sense. I get where you're coming from, because it's like, how can I explain something that doesn't make sense?
Right. Like I can't tell you what was the deal with the Phantom Zone. I can't tell you what General Zod's role in everything was. I can tell you it was in it, but I don't know what his plan was.
Dang.
I don't know. And I don't know, like, there was like this terrorist part in there where he fought a bunch of terrorists, and that was somehow like really important to the plot. But I don't know how it was important to the plot, but they kept bringing it up. It was like, okay, but why? What are we trying to say here? Ugh.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. This was definitely a nice change of pace, which led for an interesting episode and interesting discussions, I felt.
Yeah, I agree. It was a cool idea. I'm glad that Tanner suggested it, and like I got to let out some steam, and I got to complain about stuff, and it got to listen to you complain about stuff and how you hate the Legend of Zelda franchise and think it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah, just like how because of those 2 comic books, Superman's now your least favorite superhero ever, and you want nothing to do with him.
Exactly, just like that.
Yeah, because it's like the creator said, if you don't like those, you don't like Superman, so I guess you don't like Superman.
I guess not. Oh, and Xenoblade. I can not believe how much you hate that franchise as a whole.
Oh yeah, totally. Just as much as you hate Batman as a whole.
So I guess what it comes down to, guys, is that like
well, that's the thing.
Like, how do I want to say this? Because like if you love something, it's okay. You can see like what works and what doesn't for that thing, right? Like, is that what we're learning here? What was the big takeaway?
Yeah, are we having a combined words of wisdom here?
Is that allowed?
I don't know, but it seems like that's where this is going. Because my thought process is, I think it's interesting that these games that you and I talked about how we dislike certain things and how we hate them and things. I think it's really interesting that they all came from series that we both really like.
Yeah. Like I didn't bring up like a comic series that I'm just kind of lukewarm towards, and you didn't bring up video game franchises you're lukewarm towards. It was both something that we just were really, really, really passionate about. And sometimes that passion, I think, leads to strong opinions of these kinds of franchises.
I think a lot of the time when you're really passionate about something and when you really like something, you're more willing to be critical toward that thing you like because you're able to recognize when something doesn't work.
At the same time, you also need to recognize that that's not a representation of the whole of it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like, you're passionate about something for a reason. You're not passionate about it because it's fun to hate on. You're passionate on it because it resonates with you. It says something to you.
Yeah, I think it's just important to be willing to be critical about things and, be willing to recognize when you don't like something, and that's okay when that happens. And ultimately, it's just a way to better understand yourself and better understand your personal tastes. And ultimately, you shouldn't let your personal feelings or your personal tastes dictate whether or not you should like someone or view them differently because they have a different opinion than you.
So I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you very much, Tanner, for writing in and telling us about this topic idea. And again, all of you, go ahead and email us. Like, that's fantastic. I'm glad that this happened. And we'll go ahead and we'll read it on the air if you'd like, or if you don't want us to, just let us know in the email and we're more than happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Thanks again, Tanner, because I feel like this was a really strong episode with your suggestions, so we appreciate it. And just as Taylor said, anyone else that wants to write and send us emails, send it out. And we're more than happy to read through them and see how we can incorporate them into future episodes.
All right. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.